In 1704, after the huge success of the Battle of Blenheim, Queen Anne decided to gift the first Duke of Marlborough some land and some money. And so the first Duke and Duchess of Marlborough decided to take that money and hire John Vanbrugh to create what we see today, Blenheim Palace, a magnificent example of English Baroque architecture. And standing here today, it really hasn't changed that much since the 1700s. And I can't wait to share all of the history here at Blenheim Palace with you. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses. Blenheim Palace shines in the Oxfordshire landscape, and the collections within are truly breathtaking. Not least the glorious portraits of Consuelo Vanderbilt, who married the 9th Duke of Marlborough in 1895. It's fascinating for me to find out more about the American women who married into the Spencer Churchill family. The American heiress, Jennie Jerome, had married Lord Randolph Churchill in 1874, with their first son, Winston, born at Blenheim.
Now, we all know that Winston was born at Blenheim,
Yes.
but it was an accident. Is that right?
Yes, and he was born in this room. So his parents were here for the weekend for a ball, and the story goes that his mother went on a bumpy carriage ride, and that brought on early labour. So they were notified, the servants came down and cleared off the bed here of all of the coats, because this was the cloakroom.
Right.
And then they called a doctor from Woodstock to come down because her doctor in London couldn't arrive in time.
Of course not.
And yes, he was born here, so a happy accident for us.
A happy accident indeed. Of course, his mother was American, but Jennie Jerome and Randolph spent a lot of time here because, of course, his parents were living here.
Yes.
And therefore, Winston then spent a lot of time here.
Yes, and Winston was very close, particularly with his grandmother.
Right.
And he learnt to ride on the estate. He had a wonderful childhood and I think loved staying here, but then frequently came back because of his close relationship with Consuelo later.
Yes, and I always wonder about that relationship between Winston and Consuelo because, of course, Winston had an American mother, and you wonder sometimes if he was really drawn towards Consuelo because he could relate to her.
Yes.
Probably much more than others could.
Absolutely, and I think she was comfortable saying whatever she meant with him, which obviously not everyone did.
Yeah, yes. But wonderful to be here and to be at the spot.
And surrounded by his paintings.
Yes. Can you tell me just a little bit about where he learned to paint?
So he came to painting very late in his life, and he was taught by a mentor, Paul Mars.
Yes, incredible.
And in fact, the story is that he was painting with Paul Mars in the south of France, where he received a telegram saying, war has been declared, you need to come back. And apparently Paul put down his brushes straight away, and Churchill said to him, no, you should probably finish that painting because we might not be able to do one again for a very long time.
Oh my goodness.
And they both finished their paintings and then...
incredible. And then off he went
Yes.
to do his job.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey everybody, it is Julie here, and as I'm traveling from one historic site to the other, I'm always on the move, uncovering and sharing the hidden stories behind these beautiful historic houses. And securing this dream job was a journey of passion mixed with relentless dedication, and every day I'm reminded of how lucky I am to do what I absolutely love. But even dream jobs have their challenges. And with back-to-back shoots and the pressure to consistently create engaging content, the workload can be daunting. And there were days that I felt completely stretched thin, struggling to find a balance between my professional commitments and, of course, my personal life. And the joy of discovery sometimes got overshadowed by exhaustion and definitely stress. Before therapy, I tried to cope by pushing through, believing that, taking a break meant falling behind. But that really only led to serious burnout. And that's when I turned to BetterHelp, who are the paid partners of today's video. Connecting with a therapist was an absolute turning point, helping me navigate my feelings and really helping me find strategies to manage stress without sacrificing my well-being. With BetterHelp, I've learned that it's okay to seek support and it's okay to admit when things are overwhelming. And now I approach my days with a clearer head and a better balance between my personal life and my passion for history. BetterHelp is an online platform that connects you with credentialed therapists from anywhere at any time. So whether I'm between shoots or just wrapping up for the day, I can always reach out to my therapist through a message, through chat, through phone, or through video call. And it's been incredibly helpful to have the support just a click away, especially on those days when the weight of everything feels a bit too much. It helps me clear my head and keep moving forward. BetterHelp is convenient and it's tailored to fit your schedule, not the other way around. Because everyone deserves support, no matter where they are or how packed their schedule might be. If you're feeling like you need someone to talk to, why not give BetterHelp a try? Click the link below or visit betterhelp.com/American Viscountess to get started today and take the first step towards a happier, healthier you.
The paintings collection at Blenheim is sensational. Kate oversees the conservation of all the collections, which feature throughout the 300 rooms of the palace.
So you, as a keeper of the collection, am I right in saying that you kind of have to balance what gets taken away so that you can repair it, restore it, conserve it, and what stays, because you're constantly having visitors coming through, and that must be a hard juggle.
Yes, it is, because we have to make sure, obviously, the palace looks beautiful for all of those visitors that come. And we need the visitors to be able to maintain and conserve the collection. So it is very much a balancing act.
Right.
It's very much based on the priority of the item. We separate them into groups of tapestries, paintings, carpets, and generally try and work our way through the whole collection. Right. So with the tapestries, we started in 2008. We've done 17 so far. And we've now only got 3 left to conserve. Oh. And then hopefully they'll be safe for another 150 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is exciting.
That is so exciting. So where we are right now, the first state room, and I'm surrounded by beautiful tapestries. These have been conserved.
This one has.
Right.
And was conserved this year and has only just been rehung. The Surrender of Lille at the back there, that is the one that is programmed to go for next year.
Right. And you can now see, if I'm right, the difference.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
The difference in the colours.
Yes.
And also, if you sort of can see behind them, this one is still hung on metal poppers, which is a really bad hanging system and creates a lot of stress for the tapestries. So when we conserve them, we put Velcro on them and then stick them back up on the wall. And it's a much safer hanging system, but it also enables us, if there's a fire, we can get them out quickly.
Absolutely.
And save them.
And save them,
Yeah.
and save them. How extraordinary. I can really see the difference because, of course, the colors here, now that it's been conserved,
So much more vibrant.
Yeah, and they're popping.
Yeah.
And it looks, I mean, these two, yeah,
Have been done.
because you can look at that rich red.
Yes.
And for each of these tapestries, how long does it normally take once they've been removed?
Generally 12 to 14 months.
Yeah.
They're gently washed in a huge bath.
Yes.
Where they basically fill it with water and then gently agitate with a very soft detergent, and then they'll keep draining the bath until the water runs clear, and then you know all of the surface dirt has come out of it.
Right.
And then they'll sort of repair any loose threads, reinforce it, redo the lining, and then they add the Velcro. So you can imagine there are literally millions of bits of wool and
Yes.
silk in each tapestry, so it takes a very long time.
So, of course, these tapestries always had a story to tell. Can you tell me a little bit about these four?
So these four are part of a set of 10 that was commissioned by the first Duke of Marlborough in 1702, and they were made in Brussels by Judicus de Vos and Lambert de Hont, and they are one of the most accurate representations of the battles at that time. They worked with portraits of the people that were there, they worked with the maps, the topography of the land, so they're considered a really good historical record of each battle.
That is incredible, and I'm just looking around just to take it all in. Speaking of more of the conservation work, when I look around this room, and I'm just, as you said, in one of the approximately 300 rooms in the palace, but there's other bits of, you have the pelmets, you have the curtains, you've got the gold leaf everywhere, and this is constantly being looked at because you've got the wear and tear of up to 1 million visitors every single year.
Yes, absolutely. So every year in January, which is our quietest period, we do our deep clean. So each one room is emptied at a time.
Really?
We take all the furniture to the Great Hall, and that's when we condition check it, photograph it to see if there's any changes from the previous year, and then we also clean each item. And then we clean the room from top to bottom, polish the floors, and then bring it all back in. And that takes about 6 weeks with a team of about 12 people.
Well, I have to say that's really efficient. I was just about to ask you, how long does that take?
Yes, no, we've got a great team.
Yeah.
The succession of staterooms lead to the Long Library, an astonishing 183 feet long and 32 feet high.
Wow.
Blenheim had been gifted to the Duke of Marlborough by Queen Anne in recognition of his victory at the Battle of Blenheim in 1704. John Vanbrugh designed the palace as a celebration of this victory and as a monument to Queen Anne. The architect Nicholas Hawksmoor interpreted Vanbrugh's design for the Long Library as a sequence of 5 interconnected rooms. It's now considered Hawksmoor's finest room at Blenheim. And it's home to the 10,000 books collected by the 9th Duke of Marlborough.
So when you started to conserve the books, what was the conservation sort of process in making sure that they can be preserved for future generations?
So a lot of them, obviously, they're generally mostly leather bound, and the leather had degraded and the spines had weakened from sort of poor handling.
Right.
And there obviously a little bit of environmental damage. That stage also we weren't regularly checking for pests, which is something we check nearly every day now and monitor every area, because there's no way to seal the building, so little things get in sometimes, and they like to eat. And that's what we don't want. So it was basically making sure that everything was stable, repairing some of the spines. In some cases we just built conservation boxes to then store them in so they could be safely stored back on the shelf, or with anything that was really, really fragile, we've moved to the archives to make sure that it's not handled.
And walking down here, you know, this is Hawksmoor all around, is that right?
Yes, it is.
And again,
carving by Isaac Mansfield.
wow,
Yes.
look at those
and
carvings.
you see the blank panels.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, that was lovely, Sarah.
Was it? So tell me a little bit about that, because of course, Sarah was very, very instrumental in what we see today, is that right?
Absolutely, this wouldn't be here without her. The first Duke was obviously away,
Yes.
fighting battles, and Sarah managed all of this on her own. I mean, it's a building project that the majority, you know, there would be a huge team managing it now, but
Yes, yes.
she managed it all on her own and watched every penny.
So when you mention here sort of the empty panels,
So they originally were designed to have murals on them, but Sarah decided that Hawksmoor was going to charge a little bit too much for them.
really?
Yes, so she left them blank.
So she left them empty. Oh my goodness. Well, it's still absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. And she and the Duke never really, though, properly lived here, is that right?
No, unfortunately not, particularly him, because he was so busy, and then he died in 1722 before the house was actually finished.
Right. But is it right to say that he is buried here now?
Yes.
But he wasn't originally?
He wasn't originally. He was, when he died, he was at Westminster, though his wish had always been to be buried here. So then when Sarah died in 1744, he was moved here to be buried with her, and they're now in the crypt underneath the chapel.
Oh my goodness.
After the first Duke of Marlborough died in 1722, Sarah, his Duchess, worked tirelessly to ensure a fitting monument to a national hero was realized.
It is wonderful to hear how important and what a difference the first Duchess of Marlborough really made at her time here. And of course, building the palace, if you like, but also just making sure that it didn't overspend, because she was a penny pincher, right?
Yes, she was. She managed the budget very, very tightly.
Breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. Does this chapel still get used?
Only for special family
Right,
occasions.
yes. How wonderful.
Blenheim's Chapel has recently been restored and is now gleaming in honor of the first Duke and Duchess of Marlborough.
The conservation work that's been done here,
Yeah.
it was quite a big project,
It's
wasn't
a
it?
huge project. Traditionally, both doors were always open,
Okay.
and we didn't have a great heating system in here, so it really suffered from a bad environment. And we had paint peeling off the walls, the plaster was failing, there was mould, and so we closed it for nearly 3 years, stripped everything back, conserved all of the wood carving that you can see up there, cleaned it all, and then installed a conservation heating system, but it's not comfort heating, it's fabric heating, so it's just to make sure that the walls essentially and the floor stays warm,
Right.
but at the right level.
Yes.
And then installed the doors to maintain the environment a little more, and then we let it sit for a year just to get used to its new environment.
Right.
And then a long months of discussion and investigation into paint colours and paint
Yes,
work.
yes.
We found 4 different layers underneath the
you
original
did?
paint, yes. So then we decided on this final colour scheme.
And then here we have this monument.
Yes.
And this was commissioned by Sarah, the first Duchess, for her husband.
Yes. She worked with the sculptor, Riseborough, to help him decide the composition, if
Right.
you like, knowing her personality. She was very particular about what she wanted. And obviously it depicts the first Duke and Duchess. He's dressed as a Roman general, and it's just showing their 2 male sons who are unfortunately passed at this point.
Right.
The 4 daughters aren't depicted.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but it was from the first Duke and Duchess, because the 2 male heirs, if you like, didn't survive. That's where it went down the female line, is that correct?
Yes, that's when they got an Act of Parliament changed So it could be inherited, because obviously that was unheard of at that time.
Of course.
So yes, we didn't have a second Duke, we had the second Duchess Henrietta.
Yes, and that's what's extraordinary, that they were able to get that Act of Parliament.
Yes.
And we're talking, 300 years ago.
And it shows their power and influence
Yes.
as well, that they were able to do that.
Yes,
But
well-
it's quite a monument, isn't
Yes, it certainly is. Well, thank you so much, Kate. This has been an absolute treat. And one of my passions is learning more about conservation, because I think it's so important. So thank you for transferring your wealth of knowledge to me. Wonderful to hear. So thank you so much.
it? Thank you.
Keen to find out more about the initial design of Blenheim, I headed back to the archives.
So here, you've pulled out what for me here?
So here, this is a plan of Woodstock Park with Blenheim House and the gardens. And you can see here, this is his initial plans. And we've got here where the palace is, which he calls Blenheim House at this stage.
Okay.
Which is quite a large house.
Yeah, I can see that. So these are the original Vanbrugh.
Yes,
Incredible.
The purpose of this picture is to put the palace within the context of the larger estate,
Right.
and also to emphasise the magnificence not only of the building but the parkland and the grounds
Right.
as well.
Absolutely.
So this one here we've got, which is the general front
Yes.
of the castle.
Absolutely brilliant. And I just love it. Designed by
Sir
John Vanbrugh.
Yeah.
And again, the general front of Blenheim Castle is most humbly
Inscribed.
to His Grace John Duke of Marlborough, Prince of the Holy Empire, Captain General of all His Majesty's forces, and Knight of the most noble order of the Garter. I mean, incredible. Okay, so now,
So this is the south front that looks out onto the south lawn.
Yes.
Towards the gardens.
and there again it
And
mentions that, yes, we've got castle on one side, and then we have elevation du Château de Blenheim.
Yes.
Oh, but it's just so wonderful to have these. Am I right in saying that Sarah was really very much involved in the works that went on here for a very long period?
So there would be correspondence between Vanbrugh and the first Duke while he was overseas, giving him updates of the work that was going on, what alterations were going to be made, whether they should be made, trying to get his approval. But Sarah was more on the ground, working and overseeing, and she took her role very seriously as taking responsibility for for the army of workers here while her husband was with the army.
And I guess that would be quite unique, though, having a woman, back in the sort of early 1700s in charge of all of these men.
Yeah.
And did that go down well?
Well, Sarah Churchill was a very formidable woman. I think quite a fantastic character, but not everybody shared that view, which meant that there were fallouts with the workers when there were problems with payments not being received.
She also fell out with Vanbrugh, is that right? And that was the end of that relationship.
Yes.
So he never saw Blenheim, I'll call it Palace now, Blenheim Palace completed. Really, I mean, he didn't see it to the end because he
didn't
was
see the
kicked
project
off.
to the end. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so he resigned in 1716, but there were buildings still going on in the palace until the early 1730s.
Right. After the Duke had died.
After the Duke had died.
So Hawksmoor then really did see it to the finish line.
Yeah, he was there to make sure that things were completed within
Oh, look at
the early
this.
timescale.
So these are original Hawksmoor designs,
Yes,
drawings,
that's
if you
correct.
like.
This is ink.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
So it's amazing that it survived, and you can see the quality and the detail. It's,
Yes.
It's not faded as much as you would expect modern ink to do. And then this one here.
Look at this.
This one's particularly interesting because at the top it has Sarah's handwriting on it, and she writes that this is the plan for Mr. Vanbragh's way of finishing the bow window room, and I desire you to mind how much higher the cornice of the window comes from the wainscot of the room. So she was concerned about the wainscoting, which is the decorative wooden panelling.
Yes.
That protects the wall from scuff. So she was very clear with Hawksmoor, this is how I want it done.
The reason that we're here today at Blenheim is because, in one sense, of Queen Anne. And of course, there was that relationship, then they fell out, but they were really close. Do you have any documentation between Queen Anne and Sarah?
Well, what we do have here is an account book when Sarah was privy, keeper of the privy purse for Queen Anne. So she was responsible for Anne's personal expenditure.
Okay.
And what's exciting about this book in particular is it demonstrates how Sarah was committed to accounting in a way that perhaps was unusual for her time and arguably the first to have done this at court. So she details every single payment, and when things were delivered they had to be signed for, and as you have a look through here,
oh my goodness,
you can see we've got money here to Mr. Gilead for making an anthem on Thanksgiving Day for the first Duke.
Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. So so that I understand, these are basically detailed accounts of what the crown was putting out.
So it's Queen Anne's personal money, so to speak.
I see.
As opposed to what the crown as a whole.
Okay.
So there isn't reference here to Blenheim Palace Build, for example.
Right.
But there's evidence of jewellery being bought, and there's money here paid to take a man out of prison.
Oh gosh, I could look at this all day long.
Series of pensions. And as we go further through, we've got Sarah's writing here, where she's justifying the money that she was paid, or if there were additional kind of expenses. She goes into detail. But one of the things that she did ask the Queen to do, which was unusual for the time, is actually sign the accounts. So Queen Anne signs on February the 1st that I've examined these accounts and she's agreed to pay them, that they are actually correct, so that there's no discrepancy. Nobody can be accused of sort of swindling her. And then, yes, that's Queen Anne's signature.
Anne R. Is that right?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. Fantastic, isn't it?
Listen, I've seen sort of, the signatures of Queen Elizabeth I. I've seen Queen Victoria, but I've never seen Queen Anne until today. That is brilliant. Thank you, Alexa. This has been an absolute treat.
The original gardens at Blenheim were designed at the same time as the palace itself. But each generation has added and adapted them to suit the fashions of their age. I met up with Andy Mills, head gardener at Blenheim, to hear how the gardens have evolved and how they are being given new life.
Is that Andy?
It is. Hello.
I was told to find somebody really tall with a beard and colorful socks.
That'll be me.
That's
That'll
you.
Be me.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you? I'm
good,
Julie.
Good. Do you want to come in?
Are you sure?
Yeah, mind your step though.
Oh, that's so exciting. Okay. The yoga comes in handy.
Indeed.
Anyway, so nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
This is brilliant. So you're head gardener, is that right?
I am. I've only been here 12 months.
So what are you doing here? And tell me a little bit about...
Well, I'm just weeding
where we are
around the fountain. This is the original design for the Piazza Navona fountain, the Fountain of the Four Rivers in Rome.
Right.
And this was the one that was made for the Pope in order to make him have the bigger one, as it were.
Right.
So this is the model, this is the prototype.
Okay,
and we believe this was given to the first Duke of Marlborough.
Fountain, this is spectacular. And will this fill with water?
Yeah, this
Yes.
will be about yay deep.
Okay.
But at the moment, we're just cleaning the ponds out. So
Right.
we've pumped them dry. We can wash them, clean them, get all the muck out, get the coins out that mark the bottom and that sort of thing. And then we can look at a bit of repair, a bit
Right.
of weeding, and then we can start restoring it. But this fountain's ripe for restoration. There's so many bits on it that have come off over the years that we've got to put back.
That you have to put back. And so this is the time that you're able to look at it, assess it, and try to do as much repair as you can.
At the moment, we're very much assessing what we're going to do
Yes.
with it and working it out. I mean, there's a lot of loose bits. So
Okay.
we need to work out and get them back and put it right. And then the statues themselves, the river gods, we're losing the sort of definition of them. We're losing of what they should
Right.
represent. You know, you've got the 4 major rivers there.
Yes, no, of
You
course.
should see them.
The water terraces are stunning and are a centerpiece of the 9th Duke of Marlborough's legacy to Blenheim. And Gladys, the 9th Duke's second American Duchess, has also left her mark.
As I'm peering over here, this is who, well, one of the reasons I wanted to find you is these sphinxes
They're superb.
with, yeah. Should we
Absolutely
go have a look
superb
at them?
Indeed.
So
These-
this is extraordinary that Gladys wanted to create this. They're kind of iconic. And I think for many people, you come to Blenheim, you know the story of Consuelo Vanderbilt, but then it's learning that, hey, wait, there was another
Yeah,
American
yeah.
who was also the 9th Duchess of Marlborough, and here she is,
Indeed. Indeed.
forever immortalized.
In many ways, more so than Consuelo.
Yeah.
Although Consuelo's money is what saved Blenheim.
Yes.
Simple as that. Whereas Gladys saved parts of the garden. So the two of them did quite some good work.
Yes, and of course they were friends, and
Yeah.
which is rather extraordinary. Oh my goodness,
It's phenomenal.
it's
isn't it?
beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So this is really the first terrace, if you like.
It is. I mean, if you think as a guest of the Duke, you'd come out of the house and alight onto this terrace. And this is your first, but you probably would have viewed it from one of the bedrooms.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
No, of course. And so, Andy, you're head gardener, and how many gardeners are on your team?
There are 14 of us
Okay.
on the team.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the size of these gardens compared to how many gardeners there were 100 years ago, it's relatively small, isn't it?
It is, but mechanisation has come in. You know, we've not long cut all the hedges in the water terrace, so you're catching them just at the sort of crispest. So we've changed the time we cut because of the seasons have changed.
Yes.
But you know, it would have all been done with shears, hand shears.
That's right.
Whereas I can send 2 chaps in here with battery pack hedge cutters and they whip through.
Right.
And this sort of parterre here and all formal hedges, this took the best part of a week for 2 people. Now, in the past,
Yeah.
that's taken like 6 weeks.
People, you know, that's what's so wonderful about these historic houses. They're not just coming to see the house.
Uh-huh.
The UK is known for their gardens,
Yeah.
and you're always finding formal gardens, less formal gardens, but some type of gardens
Yeah.
always around these historic houses because they were important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a way of showing your wealth and your education.
Yes.
You know, you 18th century, what have you, you'd done the grand tour, you'd come back, you wanted to create an English landscape garden in the wild style and that sort of thing. So that was very much Blenheim's fore, you know, early 1700s right through to about 1760. Cape Leeds Brown comes along and goes, actually, sweep all that away.
Right.
Let's bring the parkland up to the house. Let's have the cattle up to the house, and very natural.
Yes.
So, and then you know, say the 9th Duke comes along, very different style, later style French, very classical. You know, so he's put his mark on it.
Yes.
And this is what we're left with, this legacy, which
Yeah.
is phenomenal.
Wow. So there's your team right there.
That's some of them, yeah, that's some of them working away. working away.
Spectacular.
It is.
So this is the Italian gardens, but where am I standing?
You're standing on what we call the Duchess's Steps, which I believe behind us is the Duchess's sitting room.
Right.
I like to think she would have come out here and enjoyed the view, maybe taken tea out here, and just enjoyed this spectacle.
Who decided to erect this, if you like?
Well, this is the 9th Duke.
Okay. Again.
And he instructed Achille de Chêne, the same gentleman that did the water terraces,
Yes.
to create this in here. And once again, it's that sort of nice swirls and patterns and what have you, and leads the eye beautifully.
Yes.
And it is the Duke's private garden still.
Right.
So we have weddings in the orangery, and they can use the Italian garden for photos and what have you. But mainly it's just for the family, this part of the garden.
It's just for the family.
The 9th Duke and his first wife, I believe, did a 6-month tour of Europe as part of their honeymoon.
Yes.
So they would have seen these gardens in France. They would have seen the work of Achille de Chêne, and he was the garden designer of the time. And
Right.
he was the man you wanted to do your garden. He was, and he was doing this sort of thing all over the place. And there aren't many of these left. So actually, this
How
is very, very
extraordinary.
special.
Yes.
Seeing the work happening on the orangery, I couldn't help but take a peek inside. I met up with Heather Carter, managing director at Blenheim, to hear about this extensive restoration project.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Heather, it's so inviting and warm, and I love the color scheme.
Yes, I mean the whole theme was about bringing the outside in. So
Yes.
so it was once the greenhouse. So a bit of greenery and the leaves on the chandeliers, and bringing a more contemporary style to it because it was very sedate and it had the glass roof before. It hadn't been. Nothing had happened to it for years.
Right.
It was used as a greenhouse. It was used by the 4th Duke as where he had his family plays in here, go back a couple of hundred years. The 10th Duke's son had his railway set in here.
Oh.
And then in the 90s, we opened it up as a banqueting space.
Right, so the 90s was the first time that sort of, if you like, a renovation happened.
Yes.
And then it needed to be updated.
Nothing had happened since then.
Right.
Nothing had happened.
Yeah. This is a huge project, and to raise the funds for this must have been a mammoth leap in saying, hey, we need to do something about this.
So we created the Heritage Foundation probably about 6-7 years ago now, where the monies that is raised through the visitor business goes straight back into the charity, which is for restoration projects. And we committed at that time to do £40 million in 10 years, and we're just over 5 years over that, so we're past halfway. So we've dredged the lake, we've done a lot of repairs on windows and stonework in the palace. This was, a £2.5 million project to repair the roof, replace the roof in the end. So it was amazing to be able to do that because we've had years and years and years of a leaky roof. So it was just fabulous to be able to get this project done.
Yeah, and a mammoth task.
And a mammoth task.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning, absolutely beautiful. So this now is an event space. Is that lots of things?
So believe it or not, we have an event in here tomorrow. So you can see everybody, you can't see them, but they're all panicking behind the scenes.
Right.
And then we open as a restaurant for afternoon teas and lunches. We've got lots of people booked for Sunday lunch this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
It's a really important income generator for the business. So we need to get it operating very quickly. But then, in the quieter months, January, February, March, we might have some filming in here. So again, filming is a really, really important income for us, and we try and create spaces that might be usable. So this is almost a blank canvas. It can be disguised into anything.
Of course. It is magnificent. So thank you and well done. This is so exciting, and I'm definitely going to come back. I'm the American, I love a good afternoon tea. So I'm coming back for afternoon tea. Thank you so much, Heather.
I will definitely be returning to Blenheim for that afternoon tea in the orangery and to explore more of the fascinating history of the palace and estate. I hope you've enjoyed this historic house visit, and I hope you'll join me again soon. In the meantime, do consider becoming an American Viscountess patron at patreon.com/American Viscountess. With your support, we can continue to make these high-quality historic house productions.